Alright, let's pop that full size and let you all see my handsome face. There it is. And let's make sure audio is working. Got a walkthrough. Yep, well, that looks like it's good. We're live. Crank the volume. Unmute. Alright. Okay, so we're live as we do. And uh-oh. Boy Glenn in here. Hell yeah, dude. Well, appreciate the heads up. I wanted to go live. I've had a lot of people ask me, hey, if I'm getting into Drukhari, I don't know where to start. What do you think is the best way to start? And before I dig into it, the first thing I'm going to tell you is I'm not going to tell you what to buy, in the sense that I'm not going to be like, hey, you should buy this because it's very good right now. My mantra since starting this channel has never been buy the meta hotness. It's always been buy what you like. But what I will try to do is tell you the most fiscally responsible way to kind of start your army. Uh, you know, Obviously what you buy is going to be largely dependent on what you like in the army. But for the most part, there's things that you need just because you need them. And there's very efficient ways to get them. And again, big shout out to Glenn. Good morning, buddy. Spicy Miso Gaming. If you haven't watched him over on Twitch, make sure you do. I don't get much time to watch, so I don't get a lot of time to go check out his channel. Been in there maybe once or twice, unfortunately for me, but that is the crux of all, kids work from home, just busy schedule. So, like I said, the goal is going to be to tell you, hey, like these are probably your best places to start. Here's why they're the best places to start, and from there it becomes a what is it you want out of the army. So it's one of those, like I said, like I've never, I shouldn't say never. I really try not to take the position of like, this is what you need to do because this is it. This is the good, you know. So let's dig in. I've rattled along enough now. I've got the web store pulled up so we can kind of dig through the whole line together. And honestly, this right here is going to be one of your best places to start, the Combat Patrol. And this is, again, we're assuming that you're buying everything new, not you're getting a lot on eBay. Because obviously, like, if you can get a whole army that's already built or painted and that's what you want, then that's obviously just the best way to go. You know, so take this with a grain of salt. If you're like, oh, this is too much money, cool, man, buy it used. I'm not telling you you need it new. I'm saying if we were going to collect it new. So, all right, so the Combat Patrol is actually an excellent place to start because it comes with a lot of your staple units that you need. It does have Cabalites in it, or not Cabalites, Incubi in it, which I like them. I will run them. I ran them before they were good. When everybody was like, why do you put Drazhar in there? Because it's funny, man. And I bought Drazhar, and I like Drazhar, and I'm going to put him on the table. I don't care if he's good. I've never had a game where he didn't get where he needed to be. So, but that being said, it comes with 2 Raiders. If I remember right, they don't come with the upgrade sprue to build them into Ravagers. I want to say they're just Raiders. And that's fine. It's just one of those, be forewarned. We'll check the description just to verify. But it comes with 10 Cabalites. It has an Archon. It has 5 Incubi. And honestly, 2 Combat Patrol boxes. And I know it's kind of expensive. We're looking at just over $300 to go this route. But it'll give you 20 Cabalites, 2 Archons, 10 Incubi, 4 Raiders. So we're looking at what? 1, 2, 2, 6. About, we're getting close to 1,000 points, you know? And this isn't a cheap army. So don't go into this thinking this is gonna be like Custodes where you can buy like 2 boxes and have a whole army. This isn't a cheap army. This is one that you're gonna be building over time. But these are great places to start. A key selection of Drukhari units. Yeah, we know. Read more. So yeah, Archon, 10 Cabalites. Oh, it comes with 1 Ravager and 1 Raider, so that's even better. Because now you have the option, because the Ravager is just a Raider with an upgrade sprue. It takes like 6 guard combat. Exactly. Yep. And, it's one of those like different armies kind of balance a little differently in the combat patrol boxes in terms of playing actual 40k. And because this will give you a Ravager, and I'm glad we double checked that, the Ravager's 115 points, and they're kind of a staple. I personally don't like them. I didn't really like them or use them in ninth, but again, I know a lot of people do, and it's not a bad thing to have. Like, having a Ravager is better than not having a Ravager because it's your main gunboat. So it's a very good thing to have. And you can always opt to build it as a Raider because, like I said, the Ravager is just a Raider with an upgrade sprue. Now, like I said, 2 of these will get you. I'm sorry, this just kind of like. Is there still power level? This is what threw me off. I don't know if the combat patrol game format uses power level, but seeing power level was just kind of weird. So yeah, it's roughly 500 points is what 25 power level would mean. And so again, we're looking at about 1,002 of them, and you can build them a lot of different ways. Cabalites are a staple in your army. Every edition you're going to need Cabalites, so having 20 Cabalites is definitely a good thing. If you're going to be playing them primarily, like in 10th edition, Cabalites are effectively a staple. I don't know what most of the new detachment competitive lists look like. I know I don't run Cabalites, but that's just because I wanted to try not running them. And arguably I need them. Having played a few games with it, and I've definitely won more than I've lost with them, but the Cabalites definitely would have made a difference. So it's one of those, they are a staple unit. Right now they have sticky objectives, and with the Sky Splinter Assault, when they disembark, they ignore cover. So there's a lot of interactions with them. But even in 8th Ed, the Trueborn were very good. Or not 8th Ed, 9th Ed. I didn't play Drukhari in 8th. Even in 9th Ed, the Trueborn were pretty fun and good. You still needed Cabalites just as like a cheap throwaway unit to sit on an objective. The fact that they could shoot out of your transports is excellent. So there's a lot of reasons to get 20 to 30 Cabalites. That is not a bad thing to have. Honestly, the only superfluous unit you would have if you got 3 combat patrols is you don't need 3 Archons. But at the end of the day, again, having 3 is better than not having any because they're not named characters. So you could still run 3 if you wanted to. There's just not really much of a reason to do it. That being said, again, if you do opt to go the 3 route, we're looking at what, about $500 for your army, but you're also looking at about 1,500 points, and it's a lot more versatile than you think. Like having 3 Raiders, 3 Ravagers, 15 Incubi, 3 Archons, and 30 Cabalites is actually a pretty versatile and solid way to play the game. You're not going to just like shithouse anybody when you're playing, but it'll give you a lot of options. But yeah, so to me, the Combat Patrol, excellent place to start. If you wanted to go the most simplistic route, you could probably grab like 3 of them and have close to 2,000 points. That's very playable in 10th. And honestly, it would probably still be generally playable when 11th comes out. Big Shock Lilith is out of stock. I'm not going to get into that tangent. So from there, once you have your Cabalites and your transports, the next thing you're going to want is actually going to be, let's see if we can find them, these. And they're out of stock. The 3 meta hoppers that decided they were going to Drukhari must have bought it all out. And Venoms, again, generally speaking, a staple, just like the Raiders. Really, the only time the Raiders haven't been a staple was early in this edition when they were just like way too expensive. And even now, I'd still probably personally prefer the Venoms just because they're cheaper in points and they actually give you more. The Raiders don't really do much. And that's where it's just like, eh. and I'd like to see the Raiders actually do something. But even in ninth edition, like Venoms were good. They were very solid. It's one of those where the only thing that's going to keep them from being playable is if they're just pointed very poorly, because that's how the army is predicated. The army's predicated on being able to be a lot of different places very quickly, and Venoms are going to be what get you there and how you can accomplish that. So five model units and Venoms are going to be very, very important. Ignore me if you're going to get there, but is Talos Chronos worth a dollar amount for the new collector? All right, David. We'll address that in just a little bit here, actually, because the Talos and Chronos. Like I said, we'll dig into it in just a minute. Uh, I don't know that they're on the high end of get, but yes, they're worth having. But we'll kind of break that down in a minute. So once you get your Venoms and once you get your Raiders, like you get your core set, right, your core force, you look at the army and it gets a little confusing because what you realize is that there's basically three different armies here, and each one kind of has its own role or does its own thing. And what you normally see with most Drukhari players is a lot of them run very Kabalite heavy because, again, Kabalites are easy to get. They're in all the star collectings, etc. You'll see some people that run witch heavy like me because I just like witches. And again, there was a period where witches were pretty easy to get. There was at least one box set that came with witches. I think there were two because there was what was it, the Sisters of Battle and the Drukhari box set that came out sometime in ninth, maybe late eighth. And then there was another box that had something with witches. But anyway, so for a while witches were pretty easy access. There was a kill team box that had witches and like some cool terrain. So there's been quite a few things where there were like, here's some witches. So it's worth, you know, noting that this is basically three different armies in one, and then how you want to play them is going to dictate what it is you want to buy. And then there are things that are going to just be worth. And to me, we've got the core, we've got a couple Ravagers, we've got a couple Raiders. Scourges are going to be probably next on the priority list because, again, Scourges, there hasn't been an edition that I've seen where I've seen Scourges and just gone like, those are trash. Why would you ever take them? They are high movement. They give you some anti-tank. They are one of the better things in our index right now because they just give you 4 Dark Lances. The downside right now that I see is that they're all ballistic skill 4 unless you take like the Blaster or the Shredder. And for whatever reason, if you're a Space Marine, you get to have ballistic skill 3 with las cannons, but if you're not a Space Marine, like, go pound sand, dude. You're just getting shifted to ballistic skill 4 or 5. And it's just another one of the things that I'm not going to get on the tangent, but it's just another one of those things about 10th that's just kind of pushed me towards like getting back into Blood Bowl and Old World and stuff like that. So, but Scourges are always worth. Again, they move 14 inches right now. They've historically moved 14 to 16 inches. They fly. They give you some very good anti-vehicle shooting. Typically, they either have baked in deep strike or some sort of like extra mobility shenanigans like they do now. And again, just like the Venoms, the only time they wouldn't ever be worth putting on the table is if they're just absurdly pointed. All right, so now we've kind of talked about, those are called Blades for Hire, the Scourges, the Incubi, stuff like that. We've kind of talked about that. Let's dig into some of the more like sub-faction based stuff. If you're running Incubi, I would personally buy Drazhar, even if you just get him as a collector model. Um, he's a dope model. He's a lot of fun to put on the table. Even early in the edition, when everybody was like, oh, he's too many points, I still had fun with him. I thought he was cool. He did what I needed him to do. And, was he like 5 attacks, I think, with his chops? Oh, I'm sorry. On Drazhar? Here, let's just shut you off and you. There we go. Let's give you guys a little bit more access to the So Drazhar's 45, 45 bucks. But again, like he goes well with Incubi. The Archon's 3350, but again, if you're getting the combat patrols, you're not going to need to extra Archons. And honestly, if you have no. You're good, man. I appreciate it. I didn't even notice because I'm not seeing your screen. Obviously, I'm seeing mine. You know how that goes. Um, and obviously, honestly, if you have a dark elf, like a fantasy dark elf, I forget what they're called, but whatever their heroes are called, they're just an Archon. Like it's funny. So if you have one, I would definitely recommend just using that even. Uh, but yeah, so Drazhar's worth. But then, like I said, from there you need to decide: do you want witches or do you want the homunculus coven? And here's the difference. Do you want conceptually? Here's the difference conceptually, because the difference in 10th is not the same as the difference conceptually. The difference conceptually is, do you want a super fragile unit that is extremely fast and surgical and hits very hard? Or do you want a slightly slower unit that sacrifices its punching power in order to tar pit? Like, those are the conceptual differences between the witches and the coven. I prefer, personally, the witches, but in 9th, the coven was hilarious. Yep, exactly. And the downside, though, is that in 10th, that's just not how they interact. Like, the witches don't glass cannon very well, and the homunculus don't steel wall very well. But like I said, I'm not trying to speak within the context of 10th. I'm trying to speak on a broader context. So conceptually, I prefer the witches because I want that surgical glass cannon. Now, in 9th, the coven were fairly steel wall, right? Like you could tar pit people in 9th real well because you had units that would revive. You could get a 4-up invuln on one unit. They always had the 5-up feel no pain. They had a base 5-up or they had a base 6-up invuln that went to a 5-up, and then the one unit had a base 5-up that went to a 4-up is how it interacted. But they got a toughness bonus for being next to the homunculus and stuff. So it's one of those like you could really tar pit somebody because they'd go to T5 with the all the buffs and stuff you could give them. And now they're just 6-up invuln, 5-up feel no pain. You can give them a 4-up feel no pain. But you can only take a unit of 5 or 10. You can't take a 20 brick anymore. And there's not a lot of ways to put models back in the unit anymore. You have to take urine, which is a named character. So it's one of those like they just don't stay on the table the way they used to, and they don't really do anything currently. But conceptually, if you want the tar pit, you start building the homunculus first. If you want the glass cannon, you build the witches first. Now, if you're me, you're going to take the witches because you like witches. They're fun. They're cool. This is actually what pulled me into the army was the witches, like the table feel of them. And let's go into them. So each box is going to have $45 gives you 10 witches. You'll build the Hecatrix, which is your sergeant. She's got an agonizer here. Big shock. It doesn't do literally anything in 10th edition, but you're gonna want it because 11th hopefully kind of gets away from the oversimplification that 10th is, and we kind of get back towards having actual individual weapons and stuff. Because again, that's a personal thing. This is a personal thing, and I'm trying not to bitch about it too much, but it's one of the things that's like really pushed me away from playing as much 10th as I want. Is like, cool, man. Like, this is an agonizer. It doesn't do anything. Why do I have it? But she does have a blast pistol, which is worth having. You can give the whole unit the grenades keyword, which is definitely worth. And then right now they don't do anything, but hopefully in the future, when you build out those special weapons, you'll have the Shardnet and Impaler and all that stuff. They used to actually have individual profiles. So hopefully we kind of get back to that in 11th. I don't think it's going to change when the Codex comes out, but hopefully when 11th drops, we kind of get back into that. We'll see. But normally, if you're wanting to build those out, I'd probably start with like 2 boxes or see if you can find, you know, Sometimes you can find like some deals on the older boxes where they were all kind of packed in, like I said, like the Kill Team boxes and stuff, or whatever the Sisters Drukhari one was, or they had the Witch box that came out when the Drukhari box launched in ninth. But excellent starting place. And again, your troops in Drukhari are going to be the core of a lot of your armies because there's not much beyond the troops. So witches are going to be priority number one, and then obviously like Lilith or a succubus. I personally would probably pick up the Plain Jane succubus first from a collection standpoint, or from a play standpoint, I guess, because named characters are hit and miss from a like, are they good, are they bad? And I personally don't like to run a lot of named characters. I do run Lilith because she's just so much fun. But like historically, I have just run regular succubus, or even like with my orcs, I just run war bosses. I don't like running Gaz. I don't play this game for the lore, so I'm not like emotionally attached to these named characters. I just want to see dice get rolled, and I just want to see people get bonked. That's it. So for me, I don't care if it's Gaz. I don't care if it's a war boss. I just want it to do what I want it to do, and I'm more able to make it do what I want it to do if it's not a named character, because then I'm not beholden to its data sheet. I can give it a warlord trait or an artifact or something like that to kind of get them to interact the way I want. And the succubus is a super old model. Actually, what I'll do, I want to show you guys some alternate stuff too. Then, since we're kind of talking on this, because there's some cool options you could do. Can I just do? I think Daughters of Cain. There's some cool optional models you could do if you want to have an army that looks kind of unique. Like you could run boop. Actually, let's pull that up because I might have quite a bit in there you could use too. Yeah, we talked about it. I'm just gonna. All right. So if you buy witches, now these are witch elves, and they don't have pistols. But again, like even going to a tournament, I don't think anybody's literally going to give a shit that you don't have pistols. As long as your sergeant is very clearly marked so you can say this one has the blast pistol. I've never been to a tournament where I've said, hey, I want to run this as this and been turned down, but I'm also pretty reasonable about it. You know, if I showed up to a tournament with 10 witch elves and said, I want to run these as witches, this lady with the banner is my sergeant and she has a blast pistol, I've never met a TO that would tell me no, because everything is very easily marked and clearly defined, and there's no room for confusion for me or my opponent. And these are awesome models. I actually run these as war dancers in Old World, and they're phenomenal models. They're very dynamically posed. They're gorgeous. Um, I've had a good time kind of working with them. They are a little bit pricey compared to the witches, because the witches are 45 for 10. And these, I think, are 60 for 10. We're double checking the model count here. Yep. So they're a little bit more expensive, but they give you just a nice little kind of individual flair for your army, which is cool. And then these are, you'd have to do some kit bashing, but these would make some dope scourges as well. You know, and I think these kind of do, I think they have an alternate build also. And their bases are too big. So you would have to get bases for them also. But again, if we look at these, like these things are just super cool. I would, and my next unit of Scourges is probably going to be these because I have 15 Scourges now, and when I go to build more, I'll probably get a box of these and start kit bashing them because these are just phenomenal. But with 15 Scourges, I'm not in a rush. But yeah, these would make some pretty cool optional builds. The wings are really dope. They really have a kind of, especially if you're running a witch heavy army, they will give you that aesthetic that kind of leans into this is my witch cult. for your Scourges, even though the Scourges aren't technically witch cult. So again, from an aesthetic standpoint, they're gorgeous models. They'll fit the witch aesthetic if that's what you're doing, which is super cool. And then the Vanguard box, I just wanted to see if this was worth, and it's not. Not for anything that we'd be doing for 40k, because you only have 10 witches in here. Nothing else is really usable. You might be able to use some of these models as something, but you'd just be sitting on a bunch of models that you don't need. And then she's 35. She could be a succubus, and she's really cool and effectively just looks like a succubus, because that's all she is. Let's see if we can pull up the succubus here. Oop, bam, bam. Oh, that's why, because we're over here. Yep, here it is. So we'll just kind of open it up, pop it down. All right, so this is the regular succubus, and I love this model. It is kind of old, and it's, relatively inexpensive. But again, if you're running two of them, it gives you a very easy way to identify, like, this succubus has this succubus has this. But again, it just also gives you the ability to have these much more unique looking armies when you're like, this is my witch elf succubus. And a lot of people don't do that stuff, especially when you start getting into tournament play. So just something to keep in mind. And I wanted to kind of touch on that while I was thinking about it. And then obviously, succubus, Lilith is an excellent choice. I didn't run her, and like I said, that's just a me thing. I do run her now, but it's more because just like, again, the lack of warlord traits and relics in 10th edition kind of shoehorned me into playing her as a succubus, or as my succubus, just because the regular succubus is cool, but she doesn't necessarily bring a ton to the table. She's just very cheap, and she does give the witches sustained hits. From there, I like Hellions. Some people like Reavers. They give you a little bit different thing. And if we're talking in the context of 10th, the Reavers are a better utility. Yeah, sometimes I do, man. The Reavers give you better utility for a cheaper points price. Historically, Hellions have just been a more killy unit. Right now, that's just not the case. Like, Hellions just kind of underperform. They're one of our many data sheets that just don't do anything. But we're not going to get, again, I could go off for a long time about a lot of the issues, both with this index and where 40k is from my perspective. But ultimately, I'm not going to stop playing the game. I'm just changing the way I approach the game. But yeah, you could do Hellions, or you could do Reavers. Hellions are 35 for 5. They usually come in units of 5 to 10. Let's see. Let's just pull up their data sheet, because I don't know if a lot of people actually look at Hellions. Again, I think most people have seen witches and Cabalites, but let's look at Hellions right now. And again, this isn't to just like rag on anything, but what you're getting out of them is you get some very basic anti-infantry shooting. And again, this is historically accurate. This is basically how they performed in 9th as well. You get some anti-infantry. You get some, the splinter pods, right? So they're 2 shots each, anti-infantry 3 up. They're strength 2. They don't really do anything, but if you hit like NIDs, you can force a lot of saves on gaunts, like termagants and stuff. Their melee is a mixed bag right now. At strength 4, neg 1, 2 damage, and sustained hits 1. Like, they're okay at killing infantry, but with 3 attacks each, even if you have 5 of them, you're getting 15 attacks. If you empower them, you're going to average about 13 to 14 hits, which means you're actually going to probably average about 100% hit rate. It is better than a guardsman with a bayonet, but they're also a bit more expensive. Like that's not a good comparison. And a guardsman with a bayonet still has a lasgun, and lasgun beats Hellion every day of the week unless I get into combat, buddy. They are T4 and 2 wounds. And again, this is all historically accurate, which is why I don't mind pulling up Hellions. They didn't necessarily change a ton. Where they've changed is like losing access to the things that made Drukhari so unique in Ninth Edition, the combat drugs and stuff like that, which hopefully do come back with the Codex. We'll see. Let's see. But yeah, no, I like them. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to kind of implement them. I like putting them on the table. If you're building witch cult stuff, you definitely want them. You're going to use them. And I would put them at a higher priority than the Reavers, simply because typically the Reavers tend to be a little bit more utility and the Hellions tend to be a little bit more bonk. If you just want whatever's going to work right now, as soon as you put it on the table, you get the Reavers. But if you want, like, I don't want to call it future proofing, but if you want something that's going to be more consistently usable, yeah, the T5 Hellions were funny. When I was in ninth, I was running the combat drug that gave him +1 strength, and then I was running the faction that gave all my witch cult stuff +1 strength. So I want to say they were what, strength 6. So having strength 6 Hellions is also funny. Um, when you charge into Terminators and you're just wounding them on 3s, and then your opponent's just like, but what? Why? And I'm like, bro, I don't know, because it's funny. Don't know what to tell you. So, like I said, to me, Hellions are what you would buy if you want to make sure you have something that's at least going to be usable throughout most editions. Reavers are hit and miss. They do have some shooting. They do have a lot more mobility and utility, but what they don't have is they don't have quite as good melee. So they're kind of a weird unit that ends up being more for point scoring, which isn't bad. But because point scoring changes from edition to edition, you don't know exactly how that's going to operate. But again, neither one's a bad take. All right, let's see. I think that's most of the Witch Cult stuff. Yeah. And obviously there's some things that aren't in this list. David, if you're still on here, buddy, I'm about to address your question. Because we're going to dig into the Homunculus coven units now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with what I would buy first. And then I'm going to tell you why. And then we're going to talk about like some of the units that we haven't covered. Because like Mandrakes aren't on here. The Court of the Archon isn't on here, so you'll have to get that stuff third party, Grotesques, etc. So all the stuff that GW won't sell me. Would you run Harleys with the witches? In 10th right now, yeah, I'd probably consider it. I typically just run mono Drukhari, and that's mostly because I'm just a stubborn ass, But I have run Harlequins with Drukhari and with witches, and honestly, right now, Harlequins, especially the troop, they feel the way witches should feel, which is kind of a frustration as a Drukhari player. Like, Jesus, these things are actually like good at killing things, but my witches aren't, and this is kind of sad. But yeah, no, Harlequins taking what, like up to 500 points of Harlequins. If you're running witch heavy stuff, I would definitely consider it because it's going to give you more consistent punch, because Harlequin stuff always has lance. Witch units only get lance if they disembark and you're running Sky Splinter Assault. And Sky Splinter Assault is a better detachment than the real Space Raid, but it's not a huge upgrade. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And again, my inbox is so funny because it's so many people doing like the classic internet overreaction of like, bro, Sky Splinter Assault OP oppressive, it's unbeatable, and then I'm just like screenshotting their fucking 47% win rate this last weekend, their 45% win rate the 2 weekends before it, and I'm just like, nah, dude. What it does do is it gives skilled players more tools in their toolbox, and it lets, Drukhari players actually have a fun detachment. And it is an upgrade. Don't get me wrong, it's an upgrade, but it's not huge and it's not oppressive. Uh, it just it's a very high skill army now, which I do appreciate. But but yeah, to answer your question in less words, Glenn, I would definitely consider it. It's a fun way to play, and the Harlequins will bring something to the table that you're going to be lacking, especially if you bring like the bikes, the Skyweavers, because they give you some extra haywire and some mobility and some solid melee. Like they're a very good all-around unit. And then the gunboats give you some extra haywire. So especially if you plan on running just Witch Cult, it gives you some good versatile Swiss Army knife. Like here's some melee and shooting in one package that you're going to be lacking. Okay, so Homunculus. If you're going to buy the Homunculus stuff, I would start with Talos. And that's not because they're good right now, and that's not because Chronos are worse. It's because, A, most people don't have them. I have been to multiple tournaments. I've put Talos on the table, and people are just like, I don't know what the hell that is. Like, I play against Drukhari every once in a while, but our local Drukhari player doesn't have that. A lot of the homunculus stuff gets overlooked. And I think it's because it's very old. It's freaking expensive compared to the rest of the army. So in order to build up the numbers you would need, it's going to take a time and money investment. Like before the fire, I had, I think, 8 Talos. Because if I remember right, in 9th, you were running units of 1, 2, or 3, and then you could take 3 of them. So I want to say I had like 9 Talos before the fire, and I have 4 now. But the reason I would take Talos before I take Chronos is because while the Chronos are excellent right now as a buff unit, they are hit and miss with their utility in your army. In 9th edition, they were real good at the start, and then some things got nerfed, and then it's not that they were bad, but it's that their utility changed. So it's one of those like Talos tend to just be more consistent. I have 1 of each. I just don't want to be, yeah. And that's it, man. They're $60 for 1, and they come into units of 1 or 2 right now. So you figure I've got 4. That's $240 wrapped up in 4 models plus my 1 Chronos. So it's just like, sure, man. And that's exactly what it is, Adam. Is like it's an expensive side of the army to get into. But so I personally like the Talos. I think they're worth. I ran them in 9th. Even though I was running a very Witch Cult heavy list, I still brought Talos because they give you a good melee punch and they do bring some decent anti-vehicle to the table. So they're a very good Swiss Army knife unit that gives you a lot of utility and a lot of versatility. And that's where the homunculus coven stuff gets interesting, is because that bridges or shores up some deficiencies in your army. Because even now, even in the Sky Splinter Assault, they're good. I just played in a tournament and I played Death Guard, and I got beat. Because I couldn't control objectives, and I'm sure there were things I could have done better. But I outscored him in secondaries, but he just killed me in primaries because I just couldn't keep objectives. But his brother plays Drukhari, and I know him and I know his brother. They're great dudes. But he plays Drukhari, and he's never seen Talos on the table. And when I was just deleting everything he had with the vehicle keyword basically every turn, he was just like, Jesus, these things are brutal. And I was like, yeah, man. He's like, I don't know why my brother doesn't run those. And I was like, because they're $60 each. Like, this is like almost $300, $400 wrapped up in like 5 models on the table right now. And he was like, yeah, that'll do it. But, you can put haywire on them, which is very good at killing vehicles. Their melee is a little lackluster in 10th, but that's just kind of melee in general. Like, capping out at strength 8 is kind of poopy. Like, really, they should be strength 10 for the gauntlets and probably strength 8 for the macro scalpels rather than like 7 and 8. It should probably be like 8 and 10 or 8 and 9. Because to me, there's no reason that shouldn't wound a rhino on 4s or better in melee. But that's not where we're at, and they're still worth. At T7, 7 wounds, 3 up saves, 6 up invuln, 5 up feel no pain. Right now, they're probably the most durable unit we can put on the table. They lose access to the -1 to wound strat in the new detachment, but they do, if you put them in reserves, you can get them up the table very quickly. And if your opponent's aggressive, you don't necessarily have to get behind him. You can just kind of keep yourself from getting them shot off the table. They are a good way to kind of keep that indirect a little bit more honest. You know, if you hit somebody who's just bringing like 2 or 3 basilisks or plagueverse crawlers, putting those into reserves will help them keep the gas pedal off. So they're not just like rushing down your throat and just like spamming the indirect on you. It'll kind of keep everything at bay for a turn or two while you kind of get everything else into position. And again, in ninth, basically the same interaction. They had core when the codex came out, so they got the homunculus toughness bonus. So just historically, they're a good versatile unit. To me, that's the first homunculus unit you buy. The Chronos is probably the second, and it's the same box. So if you are real good with like magnets and kitbashing and stuff, you could probably build a couple to go either way. That ain't me, but if you're into it, man, like do it. The Chronos has again historically just been a buffing unit, and what that buffing unit does is it's okay. So right now it's everything within 9 inches. If you spend a pain token on it, on a 4-up, you get a pain token back. And that's like an immediate reaction, right? So like I put this pain token on my Chronos, I roll a die on a 4-up, I get one back. Then I put it on this other thing on a 4-up, I get one back. So it's one of those like they're very good. You could bring 1 or 2. They help manage the pain tokens. And that you, especially in the Sky Splinter Assault, you really need at least 1. Because your management of pain tokens is a lot harder in the new detachment than it was in the real Space Raid, because you could just start with like 6 in the Space Raid. You could actually start effectively with 7 as long as you had the enhancement and dude was on the table. Last edition, they would put models back in units. So again, very good buff unit. What it did was you could revive core units. The downside was that, again, the Talos were core, so people were abusing the shit out of that by bringing Talos next to Chronos. The Chronos would kill a model, and then you could bring a Talos back to life, which is why the Talos and I believe the Chronos both lost core. But still a good solid unit. So again, it's the same exact chassis. So you'll have right now, it's T7, 3 up save, 6 up invuln, 5 up feel no pain. So again, very, very solid unit, worth bringing. From there, Wracks, and I think that's pretty much it besides the homunculus himself. The Wracks, if you'd have told me at the start of 10th that Wracks were going to be effectively useless, I wouldn't have believed you. And part of that's because I believed GW when they said this was going to be a less killy edition with less rerolls. We are now, almost a full year into 10th? And maybe somewhere between 6 months and 12. I don't remember what. But it is categorically false. It is not less killy. It is not less rerolls. And Wracks are just not worth, like, they're pretty solid to bring 1 or 2 units of 5 like in the Sky Splinter Assault. But that's only because you can torpedo them into something, and if they die, you get a pain token. If they kill something, you get a pain token. And they give you cheap bodies to just kind of like screen your backfield with. And I can't speak for them in 8th because I didn't play Drukhari in 8th, and I didn't really know anybody that did. But Wracks in 9th were phenomenal. You had a lot of different options with them. And what you could do with them is you could just be like, hey, with your different sub factions, you could build them a variety of different ways. Like there was a way to give them an extra pip of AP, so they went to, I think, neg 1. I don't remember if Wracks had AP in ninth or not base, because a lot of melee did in ninth. Even though melee, even though the game's balanced around shooting, a lot of melee still had AP. Um, so Racks to me, if you're collecting the army, Racks are probably not the first thing you buy with the Homunculus side, again, because they're just expensive. They're $38 for 5, and they come in units of 5 to 10, but historically they've come in units of 5 to 20. So it's one of those, again, at one point in time when before the fire, I had, I think, 70 racks. I started with witches and racks, and then I added Cabalites. I went the opposite direction of probably what I should have done. And, oops. And when I rebuilt the exact opposite. I grabbed combat patrol, and I grabbed some witches, and then I started building out, aside from the Talos and stuff. Then I started building out the Homunculus stuff. So the Homunculus, I would bring him, I would buy him. He's cheap, and so I would just pick it up at any time. Because again, in 10th, sure, he can't go anywhere, but in a rack unit. But historically, he's just buffed whatever he's around that's Homunculus coven. So again, I would just operate under the assumption that 10th is going to be kind of like a one-off edition, maybe 10th and 11th, the way we had 8th and 9th. But I would almost assume that 10th is going to be like a one-off edition, and we might see some changes going into 11th. I don't know. My experience with 10th is that it's very polarizing. The people that love it really love it, and the people that don't are like me, who are just like, this just is not for me. So I still play because I still want to see the community thrive. I've seen communities literally die off in 10th, much more so than I ever did in 8th or 9th. So it's one of those, it's just a mixed bag. It's very polarizing. I'm not saying people hate it. I'm not saying people love it. I'm saying what I've seen is that you're either on one side of the fence or the other. I haven't seen too many people who are just like, yeah, 10th is okay. So what I would do is, if you've got an opportunity to get one, especially if you can get it cheap, just grab it because it'll be worth bringing. The main thing I want to talk about now is some of the units you just can't buy, although Mandrakes are going to be for sale. So if you are thinking about getting Drukhari, get the Mandrakes. Get the Mandrakes 100%. Again, I've yet to see an edition where Mandrakes are just inherently useless. In 9th, they were pretty solid. 10th, they're a very good utility unit. If you're smarter than me, they live more than 1 or 2 turns. And really, that just comes down to they have infiltrate, and I just use them to kind of speed bump people or roadblock people. I take one unit and I just try to move block scout moves. I try to keep alpha strikes at bay. I'm not a big fan of alpha strikes as a player, so it's like, what can I do to just make sure I don't get an alpha strike? Oh, well, I guess this 65 point model or unit of Mandrakes is just going to come move block everything for a turn. And if you take that bait, I'll hopefully be able to punish you for it. And if you don't take the bait, awesome, because now I've got some breathing room. So when the Mandrakes drop, you should definitely consider those. New 40k Mandrakes. Can we? Uh-oh. Okay, we're still going. And they're super cool models. I love these things. These are fantastic. They're not horrifically different from the old ones, but they do just look nicer and cleaner. Let's see if we can pull up a bigger image without hitting the link. Open image and new tab. There we go. Yeah. So these are gorgeous models, first of all. And really, depending on how you paint them, you could just say, I have 2 units of 5. You wouldn't have to run it as a single unit of 10. I don't even know if I can. Can you? I've never run a 10-man. I've only run 5s. So I should probably look this up. I've been doing it wrong the whole time. Yeah, you can run a 10. Okay. 130 points for a 10-man. That could be an interesting take right now. I've never done it, again, because of the way I use them. I just use them as speed bumps. But a 10-man could probably be pretty solid. I'd be curious to see how they play in kill team. So, Glenn, I don't know if you're still doing a lot of kill team, buddy. But if you do get to see those on the table, let me know how they go. Like I said, I think they're fantastic models. I'm going to be getting a box. I am going to be, let's see, back here. No worries. Grotesques. Now, we've talked about Grotesques quite a bit. How I just, I personally don't feel like they're worth their points. You can't buy them right now, but this is what they used to look like. I think there's probably going to be some new ones coming out here soon. You know, I think Drukhari is getting a bit of a range refresh with the Codex coming out when it comes out. No, I don't have insider information. I'm telling you guys right now. I don't know. I personally have some third-party ones, and I've got some ones that I've kit bashed out of like some Orc Boys and stuff. Right now, they're not great. I have to finish my Kasrikan Exaction Squad for Homos. Nice. Nice. That's a lot to finish. I'm working on Old World stuff right now. I've been so jazzed about Old World. But we'll kind of touch on that in a little bit here. But yeah, so the Grotesques, again, I would put those pretty low on the priority list unless you come across like some cheap ones. Historically, they're very solid, but they are also, again, an expensive unit, like financially. Um, like I said, they're not on the website. You can't buy them from GW. You have to get third-party stuff. This is a cool conversion. And if you've got leftover bits from your, I built a Kronos and used the Talos parts. Yeah, Adam, that's actually what I was looking at right here, man. Is what is that? That's one of the Skaven dudes. It's not. I don't think that's a rat ogre. What are those called? And this is actually a great kit bash. Let's see. They're chaos. Skaven. Let's see if we can find out what model that is. I don't think it's... Oh, is it these? Is it Storm Fiends? It might be a Storm Fiend. Because I don't think it's a Rat Ogre. God dang, all this stuff's out of stock. Everybody buying it up so they can play Old World. Yeah, maybe it is a Rat Ogre. Let's open that up. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Really, either one would probably work. Open a new tab. Okay. Let's see. Is that... Man. I mean, I think a Storm Fiend would also work. But that might be... Oh, it's not a Rat Ogre. Do they have an alternate build? First of all, this guy's head is ridiculous, and I love it. I'm just trying to see. No, these would make excellent grotesques. They're on 40 mil base, and then like Adam just said, is like, hey, I had Talos leftover parts, and that's all this is. And this is absolutely some sort of Skaven model. I'm just not 100% sure which one. But these are perfect, and that's exactly what I would do. Is a great way to do it. Because if you have the leftover Talos parts, or you could even use the Kronos parts, right? Like if you built Talos out of the box and you don't have you'll have leftover Kronos parts, you'll have leftover Talos parts. You could absolutely buy Storm Fiends. Yes, they're $75, but that box of Storm Fiends for 75 plus your leftover bits from your Talos and Kronos, you should be able to make 3 Grotesques with it. So it's one of those like it's still kind of pricey, but again, if you want to make sure you have like official GW plastic for stuff, this is probably your best way of doing it. Yeah, I can't see anything else that could be. Hashtag savings, right? Well, I know a lot of people are real big on 3D printing, and I don't. I have to kind of tread carefully on how I speak on this. Um, I am not anti 3D printing, but I'm not really pro 3D printing either. I see it as a thing that people can do. I've done it. You know, what I don't like seeing. Right, and that's what I was getting ready to say is like individual models here and there, awesome, because it can give you a very unique flavor for your army, or just like all my heads are 3D printed because they have this look. But what I don't like seeing is when somebody's got a 3D printed army and it's literally just the same Space Marine models that are 3D printed, right? Like, here's my assault intercessor. Well, here's my 3D printed assault intercessor, and it just looks like a 3D printed version of the official model. And it's like, I understand that the hobby's expensive, and I understand that this makes it more accessible for some players. And I'm not opposed to that. But it's one of those like, if you're playing the game, you obviously enjoy something about it. So why 3D print a whole army rather than like, hey, GW, I'm going to buy these models from you? Does that make sense? So it's like, I don't know. It's one of those, I see both sides of the coin. I'm not pro or con, like, I'm not for or against. I just think it's a little weird that there are people out there who are like, I'll never give GW my money, and then they go play GW games. Like, that's some logic I can't wrap my head around. Like, bro, you could just go play like a Mantic game or one of these other games out there. There's 1,000 different games. If you don't like GW so much you don't want to give them money, why do you play their game? Like, that's the logic gap for me. Um, I've had guys ask me if they can run 3D printed models as a TO, and I give them the same response I give about all my proxies. Uh, if it's a proxy, it better be fully painted, it better be on the proper base size, and it better not look like a piece of shit. Like, I need to see a picture of it. Like, if you send me a picture of a model and it's very clearly 3D printed, like it's a PLA plastic print and it's all grainy and shitty, no, you're not doing it. If it's clean and it looks nice, knock yourself out, man. As long as it's painted and it looks good. Like, that is my stance as a TO, is as long as it's within a reasonable size of the original and it's on the right base and it's painted. That would actually be super dope. Uh right, like that would be cool. And that would also just be an awesome guard army. It's just like running UNSC Marines as your guardsmen. And then, man, I hate you for making me think of that, dude. Like, ODSTs as Kasrkin would be really cool. Maybe like building some kind of Wraith to run as your Basilisk or your Manticore. Like, this is my actually, that would also be cool. It's just like having that type of army, man. Like, stop. That's a hobby project I cannot afford. So, but yeah, so Grotesques I would put pretty low on the priority just because they are going to require a lot more effort, a lot more time. Right, Wraith is a Basilisk. Man, like a Warthog is your Torox. Stop it. Let's see what else is in here that, because again, there's a few things that you just can't buy right now. Reference Mandrakes. It is a rabbit hole. You are right. Like, it would. I would do it because, like, I love Halo. My son loves Halo. Like, that would be a very awesome hobby project for us. So no, I'm going to stop talking about it right now. The Beastmasters, okay? Um, Again, it's another unit you can't buy. But it's a Hellion, dude. That's all it is, right? Like, this is the old, I think this is the old model. So you could literally just kind of kit bash one out of a Hellion. Oh, let me turn my screen on so it doesn't shut off. Settings. All right. Screen. There we go. Yeah, so like you could kit bash one of these out of a Hellion. The downside is that then you got to find all the other bullshit that goes with him, like a Clawed Fiend. So I'm gonna drop that in chat real quick. Hopefully it shows up in both. Beastmaster, Hellion, kit bash. All right. Yeah, cool. Let's see. Clawed Fiend. Now, I think you used to be able to get Clawed Fiends. Like, I thought they came with a box somewhere, and I don't remember what else, or what it was. And I don't mean to be all sniffly, sorry, but I'm slowly not being sick. It's been like 5 straight weeks of just having some sort of, like, bullshit virus cocktail. Alright, so this is a Clawed Fiend. Let's see, is there... Let's see if we can find a good Clawed Fiend. Yeah, that's what I thought. Those are poop. What would be maybe? Oh, dude, it's for real, and man, like I just feel like they're walking petri dishes. Let's see, Sigmar. Let's go Death. Let's check Death. I feel like Death would be the best place to start for a Clawed Fiend kind of proxy. Eh. Actually, they're probably not even remotely close to the right size base, but those would look good. Crimson Court, Nighthaunt. I forgot that there's just like a million things in Death. And actually, the bats wouldn't be a bad thing, right? Because, what is it? The Beastmaster has a razor wing flock, which is just a flock of birds, but you could just use, like, one of those bats. Again, you can't buy the models, so it's not like anybody's going to be like, no, you can't do that. So the razor wing fell bat. I did just do that. Imagine being an idiot. I don't have to. Also, this Vampire Lord would make a really dope succubus. You might want to, and maybe you don't, but you might want to clean up, like, the bats on her hair. But just the model itself is super cool. Wouldn't look right as a traditional succubus because she's all heavily armored and stuff, but looks super dope. Maybe put an agonizer on this hand. We're just looking for something that could be a Clawed Fiend, and I thought there was something in here that I had seen at one point that I was like, yeah, that would work. Oh, probably this dude, the Archregent, could make a pretty solid Clawed Fiend. He's probably a little small, but again, what are you going to do? I mean, if GW's not going to sell me the models, what am I going to do? If you can get maybe like one of these Crypt Ghouls or Crypt Ghasts, they would probably also work. Again, they'll be a little short, but if they're not going to sell me an official model, I got to do what I got to do. you know. I've never played with these, the OCR Bone Reapers, but I absolutely love these Harbinger models. I have no idea if they're good. Again, I only dabble with AOS, um, but these are just phenomenal, gorgeous models. And Vargeist would also make really cool Claude Fiends. You just may need to put them on some different. That's what it was. Vargeists. Claude Fiend. Uh, New base. And again, I'm just dropping this in the chat, so if you guys want to take notes or anything, it's there for you. But I think those are maybe even the Crypt Horrors, because they're a little bit taller. Those would make pretty good. And then you have a Chimera, which is actually not a Chimera. I don't know how. I'm watching as I paint up my daughter's orc combat patrol when I should be working on my guardsmen. Don't mind my crayon eating. I mean, it's what I expect as a former Marine. I just assume you just have like a little wax melter with a coffee cup filled with crayons, so you can just sip them as you go. All right. And these are actually pretty easy to find. Not the Chimera, but like a proxy for these. Because again, you could use just about anything for these. They're on, it looks like maybe like a 40. Does it tell me? I don't remember if it tells me in here. Unit comp. Because you'll need the 3 Razor Wing Flocks, so you'll need all 3 of the Fell Bats. There's 2 Chimera. Those might only be 32s. I bet those are 32s looking at them. And I could look at every AOS box. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Adam. AOS has hot take. AOS has better models. Uh, especially the new ones. Nice, nice. Well, hopefully the next time I see you on stream, I can jump on and you can just verbally tell me. Um, especially now that I'm starting to feel better. So let's see what we can do for Chimera. Obviously, you could use like dire wolves if you wanted to stick with the undead kind of motif. But there's some. What is it? Korn has some like demon dogs. Shop. And actually, you can just AOS this too. Chaos. I think it's Blades of Corn. I don't know. I think it is. Um, yeah, like the Flesh Hounds would work. You just need to put them on the right size base. They might be, again, a little big looking at this picture and how they're posed on what looks like a 32. I guess we could just look it up. Beastmaster, Wahapedia. Yep, the Claude Fiend's on a 40. He's on a 40. Okay, so yeah, that would work. Man, that base looks really small here. I wonder if it's just an old one. Or maybe he's just bigger than I think. But, you could do, what was it? The Fleshhounds would work really well. They'd lend themselves well to it. Direwolves would lend themselves well to it. That's probably the route I would go, is one of those 2 boxes. And then the final unit in the Beastmaster is the Razorwing Flock Chimera Claude Feed. That's it. So again, it wouldn't be cheap, but you could definitely kit bash it from like a Hellion. Like if you wanted to go that route, you could probably also just kind of make one. Claude Fiend, like I said, that would be pretty easy to get your hands on. Like a Vargeist or something. Or if you got some, like, if one of your buddies plays like undead, you could absolutely just like snag a couple of like ghouls or ghasts to be Claude Fiends. Like I said, they'll be a little short, but it's not like anybody can tell you, hey man, go get the official model. Cool. No, like there isn't one. And then the Chimera, Flesh Hounds give you that option. And then let's see, what else? There's Court of the Archon. And that's kind of a goofy one because your unit comp is one Lamian, one Medusa, one Slith, one Urgul. And the Urguls you used to be able to get in the Blackstone Fortress box, so you can kind of find those floating around. Slith. Yeah. I think you could probably use the Daughters of Cain for that. You know, again, that might be a little big, but at the same time, it's just like, bro, you're not giving me models to work with here. And then the Medusa. I don't even know what that. Okay, that's just. That's disgusting. And then again, I mean that's just like a good kit bash. Like you could probably use like an old Mandrake or a new Mandrake, or you could even use like even just a Cabalite and some green stuff, and you could kind of go ham with that. Like that's a pretty easy kit bash, I think. Let's see, what's a Lamian look like? Oh, okay, and that's literally just like a good witch or Cabalite Kit Bash. So of those two, right, Court of the Archon and the Beastmaster, to me, those are probably your middle priority. Like you pick those up once you've got your core Cabalites, and then if you want witches, you get witches, because these are more just like extra. You know, not that they're good or bad, but if you know you want to play witches and you know you want witch cult stuff, then you get that before you start getting stuff like your Court of the Archon and stuff like that. Let's see. I think we only have one unit we haven't really touched on besides the Jets, and I'll save those for last because I feel my own special kind of way about them. And that's the Tantalus. So I'm going to tell you like this: buy it. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even think about that. Thanks, Adam. That's a good uh or Magus. That's what it is, Magus. Yeah, no, you're right. That would. And there's probably some good AOS or fantasy models that would do it as well. That's actually a super good suggestion. Okay, I don't know what this dude is, but he's really cool. What the hell is this? Oh, there's some Zinch thing. Stopped being interested. Uh, so that being said, uh, Tantalus, buy it. It could be good, it could be bad. But why the hell would you play this army if you don't want that on the table, right? Like, I love this thing. There we go. You can make them, you can buy them. I think making it would probably be almost as expensive as buying it, though, at this point. But I've seen some people do some kit bashes where they've used like two Raiders to make it, or Ravagers, doesn't matter. Like the main thing is they just use two boats because it's the same chassis and some plastic card. So obviously, if you get like a combat patrol, you could kit bash it. There are instructions on the internet on how to do that with like that as your base. When you play 40k, yeah, I love them. Can you link it in the chat, Adam? Just I'd like to check it out, but I don't wanna take time to Google it because I'm lazy. Like I'll just be honest with you, man. um, like I said, I've seen some cool kit bashers where people have built them out of 2 raiders, and if you do that, like dollar wise, you're probably saving like $50, maybe 60. But then you also got to look at the time spent. So it's what do you want out of it? Do you want something that you can look at and say, I built this and it's super cool and unique and individual? Or do you want something where you're like, hey, look, this is just, I want it on the table, you know? Do you want to spend the money for the convenience of having a built, like ready to build model, or do you want to spend the time of having the individualized model? But yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Honestly, I wish I would have played mine. I played, like I said, I played in a tournament over the weekend. I didn't perform super great, for a variety of reasons. My brain has not been in 40k mode. We've been really cranking out Blood Bowl and Old World. Um, I've been pretty sick, like I said. It was a team event. I had some bad matchups. Like it was just like one of those where it is what it is. Like I wasn't upset by anything. I had a good time. My opponents were fun. Um, I think actually my last game really came down to like a couple of weird dice interactions. I played a Stampa double Gorkanaut list because, like I said, it was like an ATC style event, and I think the whole game came down to because again, exceptionally skilled player, my buddy John. Our games are usually pretty close, and this one was like a 10-point game. And it came down to there was a turn where I put like 4 or 5 Dark Lance saves into something, and he was saving them on like sixes, and he made all but one. And then I think the following shooting phase, I hit literally 0%, hitting on threes with rerolls. Like it just like sometimes it be like that, and I do think that that is what did it. Um, but we're not going to dig into the tournament too much right now. I'm probably going to hop back on stream later this week so we can talk about a few other things. Like I want to talk about maybe the potential of a Witch Cult heavy list with the new Sky Shroud detachment now that I've played quite a few games with it and stuff like that. Plus I've got to do my league preview because I got Imperial Knights coming up this Friday. I think I'm going to be getting my Battle Sisters out for a few games. Like I'm just ready to kind of make a change for a little bit. And so like I was very checked out mentally at this tournament. Like I was just a body filling a slot, but had a good time. That being said, yeah, get the Tantalus. Again, don't make it your highest priority, but it should be higher priority than like Grotesques, you know, because it's just a fun model. Like hands down, like one of the best units in the index in terms of fun. I didn't really get to use one in ninth because I was just getting into Drukhari in ninth. But I think I proxied one a couple games and it was still fun. Like it's just one of those like I've never seen it be just super bad, but I've never seen it be super good. But overall, it's always been fun. Every time I've either seen it or played with it, it's just been fun. Because I have played against it a few times in ninth, and that was pretty funny. Because like a lot of like was a pretty big orc player for a long time, and really like started dabbling with Drukhari because I just found the orc codex kind of boring in ninth. Not that it was good, not that it was bad. It was just like if you wanted to play 40k with no tricks, no anything, and you just wanted to raw dog core rules because like that's what you're into, the orc book was the way to do it, and it just kind of felt boring. So I kind of dabbled in Drukhari just to get a little change, and that's what really started this whole journey. And what's really neat is like I started playing my orcs like my Drukhari, which was pretty cool because like I started running a lot more bikes and I started running a lot of speed, and I had a lot of fun and a lot of success with that. So um, That being said, while I've got everybody here, we've kind of run through it. I hope this kind of breakdown helps everybody on where to start. You absolutely start with the combat patrols, at least for Drukhari. I don't know about other armies. Like I know with orcs you can as well, but you don't have to with orcs because it's a weird collection of units. But this is one you definitely do because we don't have a ton of units. As far as the jets go, real quick before I get into that, if you like them, buy them. If you don't. Like, jets to me are just kind of like a tacked on afterthought for 40k. And GW still hasn't quite figured out how to make them interact in a way that isn't inherently shitty, one side or the other. You know, in 9th edition, they were so shitty that they had to get just friggin' nerf after nerf after nerf. And then in 10th edition, they just carried that, right? Like, so it's one of those, like, it is what it is. I don't particularly care for them because of that. Just like they're either really, really good or really, really bad, and they haven't figured out how to kind of find that middle ground. But if you like them, buy them. They're aesthetically pleasing. I will get some at some point because, again, like I have most of the Drukhari range at this point. After having to rebuild my army. And so I think the jets and then the things that I need to kit bash are probably the only things I'm missing. I actually have picked up a bomber used for cheap. Yeah, and I don't pay attention to and I'll be honest, like I don't look at like a lot of competitive lists. I have to imagine the points hike is probably I haven't looked at other people's points hikes, so I'm assuming aircraft either got effectively a universal points hike, or once again, we're getting side nerfs because of Craft World. So, um, that being said, uh, I've kind of let everybody know I'm doing a small kind of step away from 40k. Not that I'm gonna quit playing, but like my content is going to kind of spread out a little bit more. Like I've done some Blood Bowl stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen the little animation videos I've been working on with 1v1 me DM. You know, so I've done some Blood Bowl stuff. I'm doing some old world stuff. Like I'm just trying to. I as a player am a little bit like dissatisfied with 10th. So I as a player have been playing other games, and that's going to reflect in my content. You know, and I've tried to kind of give everybody that heads up. I don't want to shift gears without giving everybody some kind of like heads up because everybody are subscribing for a reason. And it's one of those like, I just want to be as open and honest with everybody as I can. Like, hey, I know a lot of you are here for the Drukhari content and it will still be there, but we're going to expand a little bit. Like, we're going to be talking about wood elves in Old World, and we're going to be talking about, uh, Blood Bowl. If you've not played Blood Bowl, guys, I'm telling you, I forgot how amazing that game is. Give it a try. I don't care if you like American football or not, because it's not a football game. It's a strategy game with a football skin. So it's one of those like, you don't have to like sports to like Blood Bowl, and it's worth a try. If you've not played it, it is probably so obviously I'm biased because I like the game. But I would argue that it is the best game GW makes, both from a balance standpoint and from a rules interaction standpoint. And the reason I say it's the best from a balance standpoint isn't because like everything competitively can play into each other, which for the most part they can. Like player skill definitely bridges a lot of gaps in that game. But the teams that are bad are intentionally bad. It's not like 40k where it's like, oh, well, we intentionally made Drukhari bad, but they have a lot of silly rules, right? That's not the case, right? In 40k, it's just bad. Like they're just bad. Whereas in Blood Bowl, like halflings and goblins, they're bad, but they're intentionally bad. But then like goblins get a bunch of silly things that they get to do. So you get a lot of that type of interaction. Like you have that kind of like silliness that a lot of the games used to have. And then the teams that are good are intentionally good, but they tend to be good because they're easier to play. Like that's what you're getting with Blood Bowl is you're getting they rank the teams tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 and those rankings are based off of their skill floor and skill ceiling. That's really what it means. Like a highly skilled player can overcome the deficiencies in this team and then if they learn how to do that, they can be a very good team. Like that's more what the Blood Bowl rankings mean. That's not true across the board, but it's more what it means. So again, if you've not played it, give it a try, even just once, even if it's on TTS. It is worth getting a game in on TTS, or if you have like an Xbox or a PC and you have that, because it's all just the same game. And it's one of those, like I said, like it's not a football game, it's a strategy game, and it's really more as an American through my lens, it looks more like rugby than it does football. But I don't know because rugby's not a super popular sport here. So, like, my European viewers, if I'm way off on that, you tell me. Because, like, your lens is potentially like, nah, this dude's crazy. This looks more like American football. Like I said, it just, from my lens, it's like, this is not what American football is, but I love it and it's fun. So, that being said, I think we're gonna wrap up here, guys. Again, I hope this was a helpful video, kind of breaking down like why we buy things in the order we buy with this army. Later on this week, we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk again a little bit about the new detachment and some ideas that I have for it. Um, we're gonna talk about why I don't think this new detachment fixes much. We'll probably do that in the same video, and I've already touched on it a little bit, because like our bad data sheets are still bad data sheets. But at the end of the day, it is a much more fun detachment. Um, we're gonna maybe look at re-ranking things based on the new detachment. I did that tier list. Everybody seemed to like that. I think I had one or two people who were like, "Well, you rank this in B or D, but then you said if it has this, it's A. Which is it?" And it's like, well, it's D by itself. And really, it's D because you need to have a character to make it B, right? Like, that's such a weird interaction that our army has, is that, like, witches suck. Lilith makes witches playable. And there's not a lot of armies that have that interaction where it's like, here's my unit, it kind of sucks. You have to take a character to make it not suck. So, Um, if there's anything you guys want to see, make sure you let me know in the comments. I'm going to start doing a series of how to play Blood Bowl videos. I've been working on the Old World videos. Let's see. We're going to do some breakdowns again on some Drukhari stuff with the new detachment now that we've all gotten to like get it out there and play it. And then what else? What else? What else? I'll probably keep posting some pictures of my progress on my orc army. I am rebuilding that. I had a ton of it. I ended up. I think I already talked about this. Like when I was gonna rebuild them, I was gonna very personalize them. Like I wanted all my squigs on dinosaurs, but it just didn't work out that way. And so I'm rebuilding them, and it's gonna be a very slow hobby centric build. But I'll probably keep posting stuff on that too. So. Thanks for watching. As always, you guys are awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks for the chat. Glenn, if you're still on, have a good one. Hopefully, I'll catch one of your streams coming up here. Adam, again, good talking to you, buddy. And as usual, just leave comments if you need anything. Thanks. Maybe.